I'm not going to do much of an intro because hang on, let me check. This is take 1023. So, I'm just going to get into it. We are doing frogs today. Specifically the Australian green tree frog. So, I have done a lot of research for this video, and so number one, I've got this sticker and I will link all the artist details down below. I did order this sticker off Etsy and I have had a look at their shop, but I obviously don't know everything about every artist, so I apologize if I have got some details wrong, but I love the artwork and I'm going to turn it into a journal page, so we'll see how this goes. While I do that, I want to talk through some frog facts. This little postcard when I ordered this sticker, and it looks to be another drawing, another frog pile as the artist calls it. And I'm guessing these are the same type of frog, but anyway, we are going to talk about the Australian green tree frog today. So basically this little guy was the first to be collected in Australia by Sir Joseph Banks, who was the naturalist on board Captain Cook's ship. Okay. Captain Cook is the dude who discovered Australia. Discovered. The European dude. So there were a bunch of naturalists and different botanists, which is study the plants, a lot of different people on board this ship, and they catalogued a bunch of animals. They brought back a lot of specimens, as we call them, which are, a specimen can be alive or dead. It's just basically an animal that has been collected. That obviously doesn't happen as much these days. We can collect living animals. There's a whole ethics debate with all that stuff, but basically the Australian green tree frog was the first frog to be collected as not taxidermied, but as a specimen from Australia. So basically they came along, they killed the frog and they took it back to study it. That's how things happened back then. I can't tell you if it's good or bad, it's just how it happened. There's no excuse, but there's no, yeah, I just can't explain it. I might go into that one day in another video, but today we're talking about the frog, so I don't want to get carried away. Okay, so I've tried really hard to not go overboard on the green here. I'm just being really subtle with the green. Jokes. So I obviously went crazy with the green, but we're going to work with it. We're going to see what happens. So I thought this frame would be nice just as a little background. Okay, so let's break down the scientific name a little bit. Got Ranoidia Caerulea, and Rana means frog, so Ranoidia. So basically it just means frog-like. So frogs are obviously uniformly accepted as green. So not the best descriptor. Common names are very difficult because they can mean anything, and any group of people could be naming these frogs or any animal for any particular reason in their own way, and that makes sense to them. So that's why we have scientific names, because it describes the creature in a scientific way, basically. Okay, So basically I just made a bunch of mistakes on camera and we're just gonna go with it. We're just gonna go with it. We just gotta continue on with life, hey. Okay, so here's our frog. I've started something and stuck him down. So, or him, there's a group of them, so I stuck them down. Right, let's talk about some folks. So, these guys are also known as White's tree frog, dumpy tree frog, and Australian tree frog, or common tree frog in Australia. Because obviously overseas where there's more similar frogs, they're probably going to be called the same thing. Like common tree frog is probably a name for about 20 different types of frogs. Because the area that you're in, it's going to be common to. So it doesn't mean that it's false. It just means that it's not accurate to scientifically look into it. So Ranoidia just means frog-like. Caerulea actually means cerulean, which is literally a shade of blue. Who knew? Yes, blue, not green. The scientist who named this frog, White, John White, he named it White's tree frog. Well, he described the specimen he had as blue. Right at these days, not this kind of, but back then they would have used a type of alcohol, and yes, it did give living tissue or dying tissue a blue colour. So John, who brought this frog back and, or sorry, didn't bring it back, he studied it over in England. So someone else brought it back, Sir Joseph Banks, and John White researched it. He first described the frog in 1790. Latoria, it changed from Latoria to Ranoidia. Latoria is just Australian tree frogs in the coastal or littoral zone, which is part of the water in a sea, a lake or a river, which is closest to the shore. So it's just where plants and rocks and those sort of things right near the shoreline lay. Changed to Ranoidia because it was just too general to describe this particular species. So it got changed to Ranoidia in 2020. So not too long ago. It's getting there, but not too long. And the family name is Hylidae. But scientists have argued over the broad definition of this family and so grouped them into smaller families. Ranoidia as Australian tree frogs, and there are 163 species. So calling something a green tree frog, that's really difficult to determine what frog exactly. So I hope that helps. I'm sorry if my explanation was a bit jittery there. Okay, let's do some sticking. Okay, I like this wood grain one, so I'm going to go with this. Speaking of common species, we don't want to confuse this particular species with, as I mentioned, the white-lipped tree frog, Latoria infrafrenata, which is the world's largest tree frog. So it has a distinct white strip on its lower lip. That's where the white-lipped comes from. Not whites, because that's John White who discovered the Australian green tree frog. The white-lipped tree frog is a completely different frog and has a distinct white line on its lip. They look very similar otherwise though. There's also the splendid tree frog, Latoria splendida, and there's a couple of other similar looking frogs. There's a green and golden bell frog and dainty green tree frog. So they're obviously all very similar. These are their common names. I So the dainty green tree frog is Ranoidia Caerulea, and the green and golden bell frog is Ranoidia Caerulea. Green and golden bell frogs, as far as I know, are a more ground-dwelling species, whereas the green tree frog is arboreal, meaning it lives in the trees. There are other frogs that do a bit of both, and there's some that are only ground-dwelling, there's some that are only right near the water in the littoral zone. And yeah, it just varies. So I hope that helps. I don't think it's too broad. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of stuff like that too much, because it can just get overwhelming and difficult once you start talking about scientific names and common names and why they're called what. I think it's just best to say that the common name isn't too reliable, but especially if you're doing research online, if you're looking up the scientific name, you're going to get a lot more accurate information than if you just search something by its common name. So it's a good lesson in that sort of pictures. So come in variations of green, from light blue grey almost, to say light sage, to emerald, and light green. I'm going to quickly, yeah, you'll see how varied they are in colour. There's even like a brown sort of grey pinky colour almost, so they'll be up on the screen. These frogs can go up to 11 centimetres long, so they are a pretty decent size for a frog. They are also the cutest looking. This is why they get their name Dumpy Tree Frog, because they are likened to a little green Buddha, very happy looking. So they have like a big giant smile. You can obviously see, these pictures probably don't show it as well, but this guy here, see, he's sort of got this grin. They do actually smile like that. Like, it's working with these frogs, I know, I think it's pretty cute, because yeah, they do actually look happy to see you, and if you have food, this big grin appears on their face. It's not fake, I promise. So they are just very floppy and like a little old fat man sitting there, and they are just very docile, very placid, and very happy, just casual, relaxed kind of little creatures. They're very interesting like that. They can also be bred in various colour morphs. I'm not going to go too much into morphs in this video and genetic mutations, because it's a huge topic and I would really like to make another video on it. But basically, these Australian green tree frogs are bred in captivity, and they're very popular as pets. So that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. There is obviously an exotic pet trade where there is a lot wrong with that illegal exotic pet trade, but there is also a legal one, and there are also ethical people out there who do breed this stuff. Having said that, there is another topic out there about whether you should breed these different colour morphs or not, because basically you're changing natural behaviours and discolorations that would otherwise, those colours would not come out. So you're genetically breeding two animals that really wouldn't genetically breed. There's all these complicated stuff to it, but basically these mutations, as they're called, because they are just a kind of something that happens in your cells that makes you look different, basically. That's all it is. And so people try to get different colours out of these green tree frogs. There's different things, like you your greens and your blues, different variations. But then you get this snowflake morph. They're called morph, M-O-R-P-H. And it just means they're covered in white spots. So I'll post a few images of different morphs. Basically, morphology and genetics, it's just a whole other topic. I'll get into that one day, but for things like frogs and a lot of reptiles, people like to breed various colours because they're more popular in the pet industry. So let's get into that in another video. But for this video, there are already a bunch of different colours in the wild, and in captivity it's just completely different again. You almost think of them as a completely different species because it's just they've got the same temperature. Unfortunately, these frogs are slowly declining. Obviously, the captive breeding trade is a big thing, and there is a whole illegal market because usually once you start to get interest for something that isn't great, like illegally taking animals out of the wild, then it starts to get popular, people get better at it and get better at smuggling these animals. I have worked with a bunch of different industries in different areas of exotic animal trade. I haven't worked in illegal areas, but I have worked in the legal areas. I've worked in biosecurity, and I've definitely had a lot of pets and worked with a lot of pets and captive animals that have had to be transferred between countries or just nationally, and these animals are often big targets for people to smuggle and that sort of thing. So having had this experience, I sort of am a little bit more aware of that side of things. It can be really full on. There are some horror stories when it comes to people trying to smuggle animals legally into different countries, blah blah blah, and frogs is high up there on the list too. But they are declining in the wild slowly because of the pet trade, but also rainforest degradation. So conservationally speaking, they do suffer quite a bit with logging and different. It's not just logging, I don't want to focus just on logging, but there's a lot of fields where just getting rid of the rainforest for a whole bunch of different things, like it could be technology, for things that power batteries and computers and those sorts of things, just to make computers and data containers and batteries and stuff cost a whole lot of, minerals from the earth. So a lot of that is underground, obviously, and a lot of land is cleared to dig that kind of stuff up. Now, these rainforests, I can't speak specifically to what exactly is being taken to, get rid of the rainforest, but it's usually it's always something that humans want, but it's also an ever-changing industry, and I think people are getting a lot better at knowing what's good and what's bad and what should be taken, what shouldn't. There are a lot of groups out there also who are trying to reforest areas. So there's these different charities and stuff called reforestation, and there's a few other names I'm not sure off the top of my head, but they're all buying back land and turning it back into rainforest, which is awesome stuff if you have the funds and the capability to do that kind of thing. But it's also not possible for everyone, and a lot of people do rely, even without knowing sometimes, on a lot of the stuff that comes out of the ground and rainforests and things. So, but these guys, generally speaking, compared to a lot of other animals, are not doing too bad in the wild. So give them a round of applause for that, really. So they are naturally found in Australia, but they are also found in Papua New Guinea and in Indonesia. They have also been introduced in North America and New Zealand. Weirdly enough, we introduced Europeans from Australia introduced a lot of things to New Zealand, which was very stupid of them at the time because they're vastly different climates and continents. They've got completely different plant life, animal life. It's just, it decimated a lot of places. Funny. That was just stupid. They prefer wet rainforests. They can live in dry forests though, and they love being in human dwellings. So things like the bathroom, they are often found in Queensland bathrooms here in Australia. Namely the toilet. They love the toilet. Something about the toilet bowl. They will often be under the rim, and then when you flush the toilet, they'll come crawling out. So it's quite a surprise, but if you live in Queensland, I hear you get used to it. I don't live in Queensland. I live in Victoria. There are no green tree frogs in Victoria because it's too cold. But they can be kept as pets down here. You just need a wildlife license. So these frogs love humidity, hence Queensland. So they love the air to be wet, I guess. It's good for their skin. It's easier for them to hydrate. And they usually live around a water source. So shallow creek, rivers, even just moist ground. They'll live sort of near the ground and up in the trees as well. They obviously are arboreal, as I said. They live in the trees, but they do go down to the ground because there's obviously a lot to do down there. There's a lot of feeding that goes on and different things. But when it comes to the human environment, they love humans. They're one of the few animals that cope really well with human interaction, and they will inhabit mailboxes, meter boxes, drain pipes. They love being under verandas, tucked into the roof, down in pot plants and, you know, containers and that sort of thing if they're left lying around, buckets. And inside water tanks, taps, and yep, the toilets and bathrooms. So sometimes people find them in the kitchen in different nooks and crannies, but yeah, bathrooms are the big green tree frog will eat about with anything that will fit in its mouth, basically. Any small living things. So generally people feed them crickets or cockroaches or woodies, as we call them, not cockroaches. In captivity, I mean. And they'll eat mealworms, but they'll also eat things like small birds and mice. So whatever they can grab that they can fit in their mouth, they will eat, surprisingly. But hey, they're adaptive. So behavior wise, they are extremely docile, like a little Buddha, but they are also hardy and engaging with people. They are, as I've said, very popular in captivity, so it's sort of a win-win situation. They entertain people just by being themselves, and yeah, the people feed them, so they get free food. It's really pretty simple. It's not much more difficult than that. But if you're gonna argue that sort of thing about keeping pets, these guys as pets, look, they're happy. I don't think you can mistake that with these guys. Even though they look sluggish and lazy, they can jump if they need to. They will leap out of the way, they can jump up high, and they pounce around insects around lightings outdoors under the veranda. So you have your light on in the evening, they will, yeah, find a spot and go ham on the mosquitoes and flies and stuff that are attracted to the light. It's really cool to watch. I've seen them do that before. Push food into their mouth using their hands. It's pretty good. It's pretty funny. When I've fed them in captivity, you'll get a piece of food on the tweezers and you'll be like this at them, and they'll be reaching, trying to grab it off me, and they'll eventually grab it, and then they'll just, you know, shove it in their mouth. It's like they're starving, or they're eating like a bowl of popcorn or something. It's great. So they have like a walk or grok, grok, grok call. I don't know if that's gonna sound very good, but that's what I can do. That's the most I can do with that. I'm sorry. And the way they get around, they have these large pads on their toes to grip onto windows or toilets or in the wild trees and vines. And yeah, so the discs on their feet require a thin layer of water to suction. So that's why they like this humidity. They like the humid and the wet sort of environment. It creates that perfect, you know, water layer on top of everything where they can grip and stick and move up and down surfaces. They can be on roofs upside down. The gravity means nothing to them when they do that. To finish this off, I might do some quick journaling, and then I'll just finish up the video. And a little bit of journaling, so I hope that was enjoyable. So I have worked with countless green tree frogs. Pretty much every zoo or personal collection or wildlife park I've worked at, as display animals, as the main sort of, or the first thing you see when you walk in indoors, usually in little like aquarium tanks or terrariums, which is just tanks with plants in them. You will often see these frogs with like a nice waterfall or an aesthetic with the waterfalls and mists and the dripping water and all the greenery and the beautiful rainforest. They're a very good addition to a little terrarium of plants and water where all they do is sit there happily smiling away. So they are a great little introduction to animals, but also just to have, they're a great display piece. They're very aesthetic looking animals, the bright green or the pale green, whatever green shade you desire. They sit there really lovely, and they're easy to look after, easy to feed, easy to house, easy to just keep alive. A lot of the issues they have, diseases or anything, can be checked by a vet, no problem. And yeah, they're pretty hardy animals, so overall I think they're great to keep. And yeah, I've always found them pretty interesting, pretty enjoyable. They are, yeah, as I said, long living, resilient, and easy to feed, and also clean. They're really easy to clean up. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, so thank you for watching, and I hope you are enjoying this content. I apologise. I will get better at doing the journal spread and talking at the same time, because I had to keep pausing to talk and then finish what I was doing. So yeah, enjoy this spread, and yeah, I hope you have a good one. Thanks. Bye. So I've just written popular and captivity. There's the sticker. Eat anything that fits in them. And they love bathrooms and toilets with perfect humidity and wet. The Australian green tree